Hello, Feminine Roadmappers. It is so good to see you back here on Feminine Roadmap Inspires. And today I have my friend Valerie Ramsey with me. She is a mom. She is an author. She's a model. She was a public relations manager at Pebble Beach for 15 years, and she's a cancer survivor. I cannot wait for you to hear her amazing story. So without further ado, Valerie, thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh my goodness, thank you for having me, Gina. This is so much fun.
It is. I have to tell the audience that I actually had gotten some PR for a guest for my podcast, and I was looking on Amazon
Uh-huh.
to look for this audience to look for these authors that they were telling me about, and you were down in the people also like thing.
Oh yes. Oh
And I
good.
clicked on you and I found you, and we have been friends ever since. So it was really kind of cool. So you were a Amazon find for me, and you are also the author of a couple of books. Why don't you tell us about those books?
Yes. The first one is called Gracefully, Looking and Being Your Best at Any Age. And I actually co-wrote both of them with my daughter, Heather Hummel, now Heather Hummel Gallagher. And Gracefully was published when I was 68 years old by McGraw-Hill in New York. So that was very exciting. And then when I was 74, so much had happened to me after the age of 50 that I decided, okay, I think I need to write a sequel to Gracefully. I need to let people know about how I created all these new things in my life. So I proceeded to get in touch with Heather about doing that, and we wrote Creating What's Next, Gracefully. So anyway, those two books have been just so much fun to do, so much fun to share with other people. I use them, as sort of something to have with me when I go and speak to various audiences, because I found that people not only want to hear what you have to say, but they like to have something to take home with them to remember all the points that you make.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
they're
they're
really great books, by the way. So we'll make sure to put a link to those in the show notes.
Yes, they're both on Amazon. Gracefully, Looking and Being Your Best at Any Age, and Creating What's Next, Gracefully.
Awesome. So today I wanted to share with the audience, like you mentioned, you were a mother of six. You were the wife of Wally. You're coming up on your 60th wedding anniversary. Congratulations on that.
Thank
But the
you.
amazing thing about your story, Valerie, is that you chose, like me, to be a mom for the first part of your life and to stay home and to raise your kids.
Right.
And you started this amazing journey outside of your home after 50 years old. So why don't you go ahead and share your story with us?
Yes, I have really lived my life, I think, almost upside down compared to the way that most people do. Just to give you a tiny bit of the backstory, my parents were divorced when I was 4, and I went to boarding school at the age of 7. My mother was a very successful career and businesswoman with Pan American World Airways, remember that, and Intercontinental Hotels. So because she was always traveling, I went to this boarding school in Westchester County, starting when I was 7, and pretty much grew up in boarding schools. So what I came away with was not only a great sense of independence, because you do get that from an experience like that, but also with my mom as a role model of what women could do, because this was in the 40s and early 50s. And at that time, practically every other woman I ever heard of, she was at home with the family and the children. I didn't have any friends whose moms were working the way mine was. So at the end of all that, I knew two things. I knew that I wanted to have a big family. I wanted the Brady Bunch family. And the other thing was that when my family was grown, after I had had all those wonderful years at home with them, I wanted then to make it my turn to go out and to have a career, to do something that would be interesting and fulfilling. And so that was kind of the mindset that I had when I turned 50. We were living on the East Coast in Greenwich, Connecticut, all of those years. Wally was teaching at Greenwich Country Day. When I was 53, he got a great opportunity to teach at the Stevenson School in Pebble Beach. Well, my mom and my adorable stepfather, Poppy, they'd been married 40 years, had moved from New York City out to Carmel, and we had a lot of other family there too. So it was a no-brainer making the decision, okay, we're going to move out to the Monterey Peninsula. Wally went to work for Stevenson, and I thought, okay, Valerie, now it's your turn. Think about what you want to do. Think about what sort of thing you used to love when you were younger. And part of that was just traveling to beautiful places, seeing interesting, beautiful things, and being around happy people. So, being that we were living in Carmel, I thought, aha, Pebble Beach Resorts. Perfect. That's where I want to be. So
Who would not want to be at Pebble Beach? It's the most beautiful place.
Oh, it is. Now, I had very little work experience. I had learned many years before how to take shorthand and do typing because my mother wouldn't let me get married to Wally at the age of just 20 unless I knew how to hold down a job. She said, you just never know when you might have to be the breadwinner. But I was glad that she did. At least it gave me some sort of a foundation, and I had a couple of little odd jobs. But anyway, so I went over to Pebble Beach, and they said, well, you don't know anything about the hospitality business. You don't know how to use a computer. You know, we really can't help you out right now. So I said, okay. I went and I learned all about using a computer at the local community business school. And then I went back to Pebble Beach and, please hire me. I want to work here so badly. They did. They put me in the pro shop with the college kids for one summer. And I used that opportunity to get to know the hospitality industry the very best that I possibly could. I was working with all these kids who had been around it, in the summertime and so forth, and people that would come into the pro shop either as other employees or as guests. And I would just, keep my eyes and ears open and learn as much as I possibly could. So after a few months of that, I heard that there was an opening in the marketing department for administrative assistant. And so I thought, I'm just going to go for it. Why not? So I did. And lo and behold, they hired me. So I started out doing that, became an executive assistant. At the end of 4 years, I'd also had a lot of experience helping out with public relations because the PR manager worked right next to me in marketing. And she would often ask me to go out on a photo shoot with her or to help her arrange a press trip or, all those things. And I used to think, oh, wow, she's got the neatest job. That's what I want to do. When she moves on, I want her job. So one day I was 58. Molly did move on to another job, and that same day I went into our boss, who was the senior vice president of marketing, and I said, Steve, since Molly has moved on to this other position, I would like to have her job. And he looked at me just kind of shocked because normally that's not the way it works. You have to go through PR and HR and all of that. And he said, okay, you've got it. So he gave me the job. Lesson learned, a really important lesson here. Ask for what you want. You just never know. And it's been my experience when I've done that, more often than not, people have said, okay, let me help you. You can do it. So anyway, this was kind of dramatic. And it just really changed my life. That first week handling PR, one of my biggest responsibilities was to manage all of the photo shoots that came to Pebble Beach. Cadillac had just become the new brand partner. And so they were able to come to Pebble and spend a whole week with me shooting print ads and commercials. They had a big shot list. They had a big crew of about 100 people. They had people from the ad agency, all these different places, all coming up at the end of my first week to spend, like I said, a whole week with me doing all of this. Well, I was nervous. I mean, aren't we all nervous when we start a new job anyway? Oh yeah, please God, don't let me mess it up, you know. So what happened was I had agreed to meet them on the seventh hole, which is that iconic par 3 that sort of juts out into the ocean. I had to meet them at 5 in the morning because we needed to get organized and get an early start to do all of the shots that they had on their wish list for that day. I was jogging on the cart path out to the seventh hole. It was still dark. The cart path was slippery from the nighttime fog. There was a little bit of moonlight shining down over Carmel Bay and Carmel Beach off to my left. It just gave a little bit of light, but other than that, it was dark. I could just barely make out the silhouettes of this big crew standing down on the green waiting for me. Well, like I said, the cart path was slippery, and I came down on the edge of it, twisted my ankle, fell flat on my face, and found myself in excruciating pain before I even got out there to say good morning to them. Luckily for me, there was a groundskeeper nearby with a golf cart, and he came over and he helped me up and he took me out there, and I put a big smile on my face and said, oh, it was, you know, nothing. And as it turned out, later on during the morning when we got a break, I did go to Pebble Beach's Wellness Center, and they x-rayed it and said, yeah, you've sprained your ankle and broken your foot. And they taped it all up and gave me crutches, and I went back to the shoot. And we were able really to finish everything that day that we wanted to do. So day number 2, this time we're out around the pool at the beautiful beach and tennis club at the lodge, which overlooks Carmel Bay. And they're playing this great, wonderful song from the old days called Making Whoopee. You remember that?
I love that song.
We had this adorable young couple. He's in black tie, she's in a beautiful long dress, and they're just kind of horsing around on the edge of the pool. And all of a sudden, he playfully pushes her into the water, and then he jumps in after her. And just at that moment, my cell phone rang, and it was my gynecologist calling to say, terribly sorry, I've got some distressing news for you. The test that we ran last week showed that you have uterine cancer. And because my mother and her mother had both died from that, he was not going to, you know, mess around at all. He said, I'm scheduling a complete hysterectomy for next week. You come down to my office tomorrow for some pre-op testing. So day 3, I have to leave my crew again, and I'm still on crutches. I go down to my doctor's office, and I'm sitting there on the table, and he puts a stethoscope on my chest, and he got this really concerned look on his face, and he said, you've got a very unusual arrhythmia going on here. I don't know what it is, but I can't touch you until I've sent you to a cardiologist, which he did that afternoon. Well, it turned out that I had something called viral cardiomyopathy, which is, for the people that don't know what cardiomyopathy is, it's when a virus gets into your heart muscle. And it could be like a cold virus, it could be any number of things. And it really weakens it. So when they do an echocardiogram, they look to see what they call your ejection fraction is, and it should be up around 70, and that just means you've got a nice strong heart rhythm, heartbeat going. Mine was way down at 20. It was just kind of going like this, and it was also causing very bad ventricular tachycardias, which are the kind of arrhythmia that can throw you into sudden cardiac arrest and kill you. And I had noticed those, and I just thought, it's nothing. You know, we just tend to put off things. It's nothing. It's a little skipped heartbeat. It wasn't. So anyway, I knew I was going to have surgery for the cancer. They were going to have to do something about this heart situation that I had. and I was going to have to take a couple of months off from work. Well, bless Pebble Beach, they said, don't worry, we really want you in that job, so you take the time that you need and come back when you're ready. And they were just wonderful. So I did. And that was really that experience was my big aha moment. I really realized at that point that life can begin all over again at middle age.
Yes.
It really can. 50 doesn't have to be the end of the road. It can be the start of a whole new race. So I was so determined. People would say to me, gosh, you've got all this serious stuff going on. Are you going to think about retiring? I was 58, I had grandchildren and, husband at home and so forth. I said, absolutely not. That is not an option for me. I am going to get through all of this, and I'm going to go out and make the second half of my life absolutely as wonderful as the first half has been. And that's what I did. So I was 58 then. Not too much longer after that, well, maybe about 5 years after that, I was discovered I was managing a photo shoot on the 18th hole, and the producer said to me, he said, I really think you should be doing something, with your looks. You should be modeling. And I said, David, you're absolutely crazy. You're being a sleazy Hollywood producer. Who would want to hire a 63-year-old model? And he said, I can think of a lot of people. So he said, let me take some pictures. He did. He sent them off to probably the biggest modeling agency in San Francisco, and then also to Ford Models in Chicago. So much to my amazement, they called me from San Francisco, and they said, we would love to talk to you about signing a contract with us. And so I did. And it was at that point, I didn't leave Pebble Beach. That was so important to me. I loved that job. That was my career, and I was going to hang on to that. But I thought maybe I can just do, some go-sees, as they call them, or castings and jobs when I have some time to do that. So that's what I did. The local newspaper heard about this 63-year-old model, who's a grandmother and a grandmother. And they came to me and they said, we'd really like to do a story about you, or it's something that our readers would enjoy. So at first I said no, but then I said, all right, why not? So they did. And it got picked up off the McClatchy news wires, and it went all over the country. And I could tell that because I would start getting emails from the different cities where that story had landed, like Chicago or Miami or Boston or New York, or Los Angeles. And people would say things like, I read about you in the newspapers, and you really changed my life, because I realized that if you can go out and do something different when you're 50 or 60, so can I. I don't have to go out there and be a model. I can go out there and try anything that is right for me. But you've given me the courage to do that. And I got so many emails from women and men too. And so my daughter, Heather Hummel, who was living in Charlottesville, Virginia at the time, is a writer. She was and is a very good writer. And I would call her up and I would read these emails to her. And she said, Mom, I think we've got the basis for a book here. So she wrote, a sort of a draft of a preliminary piece that she would send to various publishers, and see if, first of all, we could get a literary agent, and then if the agent could take our proposal and go around and start to sell it. So within maybe 3 weeks, we had a wonderful literary agency in New York City that was thrilled to take it on. We finished the proposal, and they started shopping it to the top publishers, and that's when McGraw-Hill jumped on it and said, this is so timely. We want to bring it out in our lead books for spring, which coincided also with Mother's Day being a mother-daughter project. That was great. And so we finished the book, and McGraw-Hill published it at the end of April. Well, a lot of other things started happening then too. As I became a little bit more known, I was invited, first of all, to go on the Today Show. And that's a story that I kind of want to share, because that was another interesting lesson. It wasn't just that, life begins at middle age. One day when I was sitting at my desk at Pebble Beach, my phone rang, and it was Peter Greenberg, who was then the travel reporter for the Today Show. And he said, our executive producer, Jim Bell, is in San Francisco with his wife and the nanny and their 4 little boys. They are driving down the coast to Los Angeles, and they would like to spend the night at Pebble Beach. Can you take care of them? Well, of course I could, And so I made all the arrangements for them to stay, and I made them dinner reservations at Roy's Restaurant, which was at the inn at Spanish Bay on our properties, and was very excited about them coming. And so I made a point that evening, right before their dinner reservation, to go over to Roy's so I could greet them when they arrived and say hello. And oh, he's just the nicest man. Normally he does all their Olympics, but for about 2 years he took a break from that and was doing the Today Show. Well, it happened that a couple of days after that, and he'd given me his business card. And so a couple of days after that was when the newspaper article came out about 63-year-old model signs with Ford. I grabbed a newspaper, I stuck it in a FedEx envelope, I put a Post-it on it saying, just in case my story happens to coincide with something you're doing on the Today Show, maybe this will be of interest. Well, he got it. He emailed me back immediately. He said, I love your story. You're going to be hearing from one of our producers. And so, there again, when a door opens, walk through it or run through it. Take advantage of these opportunities. If it's something that really, really revs you up and gets you excited with butterflies and everything, and something is telling you, go for this, listen to your intuition and do that. So they sent a crew out. I had a photo shoot with Lexus down by Big Sur. The next week, they sent a crew out to photograph me doing the photo shoot. And then we did a long interview at the lodge, because that's kind of where everything had started for me. And then a funny thing happened a couple months later. My phone rang one morning, and it was a different producer from Today. And she was calling to say, we are doing a story about women who have let their hair go to its natural silver gray color. And we remember your hair from the last time you were on. Would you fly to New York as our guest, and you can bring your husband and go on the Today Show? We're also going to have Nora Ephron on that show. She had a book called I Feel Bad About My Neck, I think was her book, and do a show with us. And I really couldn't believe it. I mean, they wanted to fly me to New York to talk about my hair, of all things. It seems so crazy. But I did, and I had a relationship with Tiffany's, because they had given me a book signing party in Carmel. So they invited me to go over to their Fifth Avenue store and pick out any jewelry that I wanted to wear on the Today Show. I mean, it was just like heaven,
Yeah, that's kind of a dream all by itself.
It was. So I did that. And then when I went back out to Pebble Beach, I started getting invited to do other television shows in California, and also to start doing speaking engagements. I did several, especially in California, for the American Heart Association. So after that, after I got back home to California, I started getting a lot of invitations to come and speak to various Go Red for Women, the American Heart Association, at their big fundraisers, because I had that experience with cardiomyopathy. And also Heather had a huge experience. She'd been born without a pulmonary artery, and also a big hole between the 2 lower chambers. And when she was born with that, she was one of the first. They didn't have a cure for it. And we really depended on research coming up with a cure, which they did when she was 9. So I had a lot to say about the importance of donating to the American Heart Association for research. So anyway, that's why I started, doing all these various talks. And then USA Today came to me. I started doing modeling jobs in Toronto and Montreal. A lot of other newspapers and magazines started writing up stories. And I thought, I'm 68 now. I've had 15 years at Pebble Beach. I've done everything that I really set out to do. And now all these other opportunities are coming my way. And I thought I'd better leave Pebble Beach and take advantage of the things that interest me, because if I don't do it now, it's not going to happen. So, timing, just when something feels right again, you go after it and you do it. So I did. And one of the things that happened, this is another interesting story. One day I got a telephone call from the National Medical Association and Medtronics Corporation. Medtronics makes a lot of different parts that go into bodies for all sorts of reasons. I have an implanted cardio defibrillator. So they said, we are putting on a sudden cardiac arrest leadership conference in Washington, D.C., and we've got several hundred cardiologists coming to it. We would love to have you come and give your story, if you would, as a layperson's point of view on, Medtronics and what happened to you. And I was scared to death, Gina, really. I had never spoken to a huge group like that before. I hadn't done anything remotely like that. I was really terrified. But I thought to myself, this could be a great growing experience, a great learning experience. My story will help these doctors with their patients, and I'll help myself too, because maybe now if I do this, I won't be scared of public speaking anymore. So while I got on a plane, we went to Washington, and I spoke to all those doctors and just told them my story, and they were so kind, so nice, so appreciative. And after that, I just sort of grabbed every opportunity to speak about whatever it was from my own life experience that people wanted to hear about. So besides the Heart Association, it was all kinds of women's groups, organizations. Even last year, I was a featured speaker at the Central California Women's Conference, which had 4,000 women coming to that. I've done all kinds of really interesting things. So got over that hurdle, and pretty soon, my 72nd birthday rolled around. Wally and I decided that after 24 years in California, we wanted to move back to the East Coast. We have 2 daughters in California, 4 children on the East Coast, and we were basically East Coasters. So we came back and we decided to settle in Florida, where we had a lot of friends. And right before my birthday, Wilhelmina Models contacted me. They were down in South Beach. And they said, we've heard about you. We know you're here now. We would love to meet you. Would you come down? So Wally and I went down to South Beach. That was an experience. That's a book all by itself, going to South Beach, especially, somebody with my background. It was like, I felt like the heroine in a Danielle Steele novel or something. But anyway, I did that. I signed with them, and I've done some, a lot of fun commercials and ads and so forth. So right after that, a couple years later, I thought, all right, it's time to write another book, because I've learned so many great lessons about opportunities and how to make the most of them and how to create the life you want after 50. So that was when I contacted Heather, and we put together Creating What's Next, Gracefully. So that was great fun. And a couple years later, I was 76, and I heard about this magazine that had just come out called Fabulously 50. And I thought, well, that sounds interesting. And I looked it up, read it, was very impressed by it, contacted the publishers. We had lunch, we talked. Turned out that they were in need of an executive editor. So they said, would you mind, would you considering coming to work as our executive editor? Well, I had never done anything like that before, but I thought, well, with the PR experience I've had and with writing gracefully and just reaching this ripe old age of 76 with a lot of a lot of life experience, and I had made so many great contacts too from my years at Pebble Beach. I said, okay, I'll do it. So I took that on, and there again, it was another learning experience. A lot of asking for what you want, because when you want somebody to give you a story, you have to do that.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah. So that was great, and then I just sort of started becoming better known almost globally. Vogue Japan contacted me, and they said, we're doing a feature about strong women who are over 60. And we've read about you, and we would like to include you in that article. They were doing, I think, 12 women from around the globe.
Wow.
So here I was in Vogue Japan, of all things. And then shortly after that, and there's another story to go along with these two things. I had an email from a lovely, lovely editor at La Provincia in Milan, Italy. She was writing a story about women who are, again, strong examples of how to live the best possible life after the age of 60 or 70. She said, I really want to do a whole spread about you with your story, with photos, everything else. So she spoke beautiful English. So we went back and forth, and she did that, and that came out. La Provincia goes all over Italy. And then they also have a beautiful big magazine that they put out. So she did a separate feature on that. And then she also asked me to write a feature about Palm Beach, which is iconically beautiful, here, and for the magazine. So I did that. So just having that whole Italian experience, was really great. But what was weird, I told you that I'd had uterine cancer. When we got back to Florida, it turned out that I had a second kind of cancer called soft tissue sarcoma. And it's when a malignant tumor gets into one of the connective tissues. So if it can go into a bone, and it can be bone cancer, but it can also go into an artery or, any kind of connective tissue that you've got. I had this in my ankle. It's so rare that there were no doctors at that time. This was about 6 or 7 years ago. There were no doctors at that time near us that had any experience operating on that. So they sent me up to Sloan Kettering in New York for surgery. And I was up there for about 10 days, I guess, before I could come back home. While I was sitting in the hospital in New York, that was when I happened to, out of the blue, to get this email from Vogue Japan. I mean, I thought, I couldn't even get out of bed to go and use the restroom. And here I am, very ungracefully sitting on my bed, and I get this email about Vogue Japan. So I thought, gosh, that just goes to show that anything can happen anytime when you least expect it. So.
And it wasn't even something you were necessarily prepared for. It just came
Not at
to you.
all. It was the last thing I was thinking of. So 2.5 years ago, I had a recurrence. I got the same soft tissue sarcoma again. The doctors couldn't believe it. They said it's so rare that you would get it, first of all, once, but twice was really unheard of. So by that time, there was an excellent team of specialists down in Miami, and I went down there for surgery. And again, I'm confined to bed for a week, and I get another email. And that was when I heard from La Provincia. So I thought, boy, this really goes to show you just never know.
You had that you had stopped long enough they could find you.
Yeah, right. The beauty of emails. So I did that, and then so that was 2.5 years ago, and so far so good. I'm recovered from that. Uh, and then shortly after that, I guess it was, Gina, you found me, which was amazing. It's just such a beautiful, wonderful thing to have happen. And I'm just thrilled about that. I loved doing your podcast with you. And now I'm just so honored to be on your Feminine Roadmap Inspires show with you. So this is great. I've done
You
some
said yes to my ground level experience. I'm so grateful.
Yes, I did. And I've done another video for a place out of Switzerland called 60 and Me. And I've done 3 videos with them. And one of them is on fashion and beauty. That's what they asked me to come on and speak about. And their headline was 80-year-old model shares her fashion and beauty tips. Well, the other 2 were very nice, but boy, the fashion and beauty from the perspective of an 80-year-old model really has gone just crazy. And as of today, we've had 135,000 YouTube views.
Wow, you're viral, Valerie. Look at you.
And after the new year, we're going to be doing another one on that same subject because it's very obvious that ladies want to hear about beauty and fashion. So
Yeah.
I'm just happy to share my little, tips and everything. Down here in Florida, I've also done other fashion shows. I did a commercial for a Palm Beach golf course, and I did a commercial for a jewelry store. So all these, little things, they come along. But I'm also happy. I just turned 80 a couple weeks ago.
Happy birthday.
Just turned 80, and you think to yourself, how in the heck did that happen? Really, it's such a shock because I remember, as a kid or as a young woman, I thought, 80 was really old. Well, it is and it isn't. Chronologically, yeah, it probably is. But, in your head, and I know a lot of other people, as they get older, they say this, I still feel 17. I really, in my mind, I haven't gotten old, and please God, I never will. So now I have from my own perspective, looking back over my life, turning 80, and all the things that I have done, they've all been great. I appreciate every single opportunity that's come along. I adore and appreciate all of my family and my husband, Wally, as you said, will be married 60 years this December. Everything I've done has been very nice, but when you get to this stage, the one thing above all others that really, really matter is your family and your friends. Nothing else can compare to those. The love that you share with your family and the times that you have together. So that's what I'm concentrating on now. And I'm just so grateful. The kids and grandkids are all here for my 80th birthday a couple weeks ago. And, just these opportunities to see each other and to be together. And now for Wally and me, just to have some nice time together because, with working and traveling and everything else, we haven't had all that much time until now. So we're just taking advantage of every day. And I'm so grateful for every beautiful day that we have here.
And it has been an amazing journey. It's so great. Your husband's been supportive. Your kids have been supportive.
Yes. Yeah. Very, very, very supportive. And it has been very happy. My mother passed away 30 years ago, right before I went to work for Pebble Beach. And I always wished, because being a career woman was so important to her. Mm-hmm. She loved fashion and beauty and all those things. And I thought, oh, I wish my mom were here now that I could share this with her. But I feel that she is. I really feel that she and my darling Poppy, that they know. I really feel my angels and my loved ones are around me all the time.
And it's really neat because the next level for you is being on these digital platforms.
Yes, yes, yeah. I'm so grateful for those opportunities because I'll be honest with you, Gina, I'm finding travel, especially long distance travel, when I flew out to California for the Central California Women's Conference, I do get kind of tired.
Yeah.
I do. And so sitting, being able to be in my home in front of my computer and talking to you and not having to leave the house definitely has its advantages. And what I love also about it too is, I think about all the people that are going to see these videos. And, it's so many more than would be sitting in an audience in an auditorium or something. So that's really meaningful. And what I love, lots of times they'll email me personally. And so you can put my email address on your
In the show notes. That's a great idea.
Because I'll have questions about how did you do this or how did you do that, or what do you do with your hair and your makeup and whatever it is. I love hearing their stories and hearing from them personally. So that's an added bonus. So everything is good, Gina.
It's such an amazing journey to watch how you kind of went with the flow of what was coming. There really wasn't a quote plan other than going to Pebble Beach and working there.
No, it's really, I had no plan for my life other than I knew, okay, I really do want to have, after the children are grown, I really do want to have a career, but I didn't have a clue what it was going to be. And I had no idea about the things it would lead to. I just figured, okay, I'm just going to go with the flow. And when something comes along that interests me, I'm going to go for it. And that'll be the next step. And that's kind of how my whole life has worked out.
It's been a fun ride.
Yeah, it has. I think if we listen to our gut instincts and take advantage of the opportunities that appeal to us and shy away from the negative vibes that we are invariably also going to get about certain situations, knock those out of your life. Don't do those. Things have a way of working out.
Well, we know that you have this great opportunity with 60andMe, which I will be putting in the show notes below. I'll have a link to that 60andMe viral video because it's a good one, and your books and your email and everything else. Is there a parting encouragement that you'd like to give?
I would just say, live your life with gusto. Be grateful for every single day. Love all your friends and family and let them know that you love them. And God bless you all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you again, Valerie, for saying yes on my new venture. My podcast has been around for a couple of years at the time of this taping, and this was just something that came across my mind. Like you said, I thought I need to get in the video world and share the stories of women that I'm inspired by, because seeing the person, not just hearing their voice, I think is a powerful way to communicate.
Yeah.
As we know, because you went viral.
Yes. It's so crazy.
So neat. So what we'd like to have you do, friends, is get in touch with Valerie. Go down below, subscribe, click on her link, get in contact with her, grab her books over at Amazon. Those links are there also. And as always, thank you for joining us here on Feminine Roadmap Inspires. I greatly appreciate your time. And Valerie, I greatly appreciate yours as well, my friend. And I'll be talking to you again soon.
Oh, thank you, Gina. This has been wonderful. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.